do you love yourself? We are told all day long through memes and medias, and you hear it, love yourself, love yourself. And we're not really even paying attention to what that means, because it sounds almost kind of fictional and I would say sort of this fake motivation that we've been conditioned to see in memes and motivation. But I want to ask you to reconsider what it means to love yourself, not from a perspective of what we've heard, but maybe from a perspective of the second commandment. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, which is a very kind of interesting way to look at self-love that is completely apart from what we've been told self-love, do whatever you want, right? The way we've defined self-love is go forth, do whatever you want, have no restraint or regard, and that's what it means to love yourself, is to have no constraint and to do whatever you want. Now, that kind of self-love quickly leads us to our destruction, because clearly you can't eat a pint of ice cream every single day and not eventually be unhealthy. You can't just sleep around with every single man and not feel disgusted with who you are or unhappy or unfulfilled. You can't just yell at everyone and expect people to actually experience deeper connection. You can't just have a chaotic home and expect to not clean up because you can do whatever you want and not feel this burden of your home being so messy. You can't just be, not be a woman of your word and expect to have relationship based on trust. So this idea of self-love that comes from do whatever you want is actually a false self of self-love, because what does it really mean to love ourselves? So I'm going to go back to that, second commandment is to love ourselves is to honor our value, right? To uphold that our value never changes. Our worth is unconditional. So this idea of self-worth is really based on how we understand our value. My self-worth is high or my self-worth is low because I've been told that I'm valuable only if and when I get an A. I'm thin, I make money, my positions, whatever what we call poisonous P in the women's school. And so most women today don't feel as that they're valuable. Their value is actually unconditional because their self-worth, the way they understand their value, the way they see their worth, is usually inherited by the people that place those conditions on our value. Maybe your father said that, maybe give you more attention when you did better at a game, or maybe your mother gave you more attention when you got an A in school. And so you start to then believe that you're important, you're valuable, right? When you are able to produce an A. So now we don't have an unconditional sense of our own self-worth. So it goes back to then, what does it mean to love ourselves? It means to honor our value, which means that we believe from the depths of our being that our worth never changes. It is not for sale and it's not conditional. That's what it means to actually love ourselves. To honor our value means that we pursue and discover the deepest desires of our heart. We discover who we are and that we contribute our value to the world. That's what it means to honor our value. We are so valuable that the world will never be the same if we don't contribute the best of who we are in the world. We are so valuable that we are irreplaceable, unrepeatable woman, that nobody will ever be us in history. And we know that because nobody will ever be you. Your DNA, in context of your, placement in time and history, in context of your circumstance, your personality, all of that probability combination makes you an irreplaceable woman. So now, how do you love yourself? You honor your unconditional worth, your value. Now, let's go back into how do you love yourself? Well, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, this puts a little bit more weight, right? Because you cannot love somebody greater than you love yourself. It's the first foundation of every relationship is your ability to actually love yourself. So this fluff love of doing whatever I want, or fluff love of us just hearing that all day long, but not really understanding the depths of what it means to love ourselves, is actually costing us our relationship. Because ultimately, you can't love your friend, your boyfriend, your spouse, your coworker, your child greater than you love yourself. You can't uphold the love that you want to uphold if you don't have a healthy, ordered understanding of self-love. So now this becomes more important than it ever has been before. To love wholeheartedly and have deep, meaningful connection that fulfill us actually requires us to love ourselves. Now the question is, how do we love ourselves for the purpose of loving the other? Well, that requires us what? To know thyself, right? Socrates, who said, know thyself, to what end? To love thyself, but to what end? right? So that we can actually love the other. So I'm going to ask you, how are you getting to know yourself? How do you know your dreams? How do you know the desires of your heart? How do you know your old wounds? How do you know what makes you come alive? What saddens you? What actually makes you feel valuable? What actually makes you feel vulnerable? All of which are deep self-awareness that requires you to study you. Right? Why do you study you? So you can honor you and love love yourself unconditionally as a prerequisite to loving the people around you. Otherwise, it falls short. So self-awareness and self-knowledge is the prerequisite to self-love. Self-love is a prerequisite to loving the other person, aka the second commandment. So we don't have a choice if we're a woman of faith, or that we want to have deep relationship apart from even our faith and deep connection with the people around us, whether it's at work or family life or relationship, then we actually have to know ourselves. So how do we do that? Well, number one, we have to look at a whole version of ourselves. And that's what we teach in the women's school, is a whole version of the woman, every part of our arena. Who am I? What is my self-image? The self-image, as we define, is the opinion of the whole that we hold of ourselves, because we have an opinion we hold of ourselves, could be negative or positive. You have an opinion of yourself right now. I'm just really not good at math. I'm really not good at speaking. I'm just shy. I'm just, I'm really strong, or I'm not strong. And whatever that is, it's an opinion that you might have inherited, or perhaps you have acquired through the years based on what somebody told you. But it could be the opinion that you might not want of yourself, right? And so what we want to do is pay attention and listen to who we are in the different parts of our life, of ourselves. The battleground of lack of self-knowledge is actually language. We don't know how to process who we are. We don't know how to ask deeper questions. We don't have the language of self-awareness to say, oh, what are my deepest aches and my deepest desire? That's a language of self-awareness. That's a language of getting to know yourself. How do I know how to harvest from my old wounds? Because we've all been wounded. It's like nobody is free of pain. It's part of the human experience. Not only part of the human experience, it's actually part of what makes us resilient as human beings. And so everybody has been wounded, but it's if we haven't harvested wisdom from our wound, then we carry that wound almost with guilt, shame, resentment, or anger, because we haven't seen the good from that pain. We haven't seen the resurrection from that cross. Therefore, we carry it unnecessarily because we haven't studied our wound, harvested from it, and then extracted so that we can give birth to a new woman from it. Now, all of this requires time, effort, and energy. You can't just get to know yourself in one sitting. So the invitation that I have for you is that we have to love ourselves by knowing ourselves. And the way we do that is we become a student of ourselves for the rest of our life. Because as we continue to expand and grow, we have new learnings, new desires, new experience that expands our desires, our wounds, and the way we see things and the way we shape things. We're always, seeing things from sort of different angle with how the world is changing, our relationships are changing. And so we can never exhaust the way we actually know ourselves, which means that in order to continually love ourselves, to love the other, we have to continually know thyself, which is why we need to be a student of ourselves for the rest of our life. We're constantly studying the desires of our heart. We're constantly studying our wounds. We're constantly studying how we can improve ourselves. And this is, to me, the importance of personal development. It's an interior development of self, but it's not personal development so that we can be full of ourselves, but so we can give more of ourselves to the people that we love, so we can love more fully and sustainably. Because if we don't love ourselves and we're giving to the people around us, eventually we're going to get bitter. Why? Because we feel that it's a love that's actually bypassing our own self-love. And you know that because you're giving to your husband, you're giving to your children, you're giving to your coworker, you're giving to your boyfriend, but you're not honoring your own value. You're being trampled, you're not being valued, taken advantage, you're taken for granted, you're suppressing your desires of your heart, but you're giving. Eventually it's going to come back and say, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm burnt out, I'm resentful, I'm angry because I actually haven't learned to love myself fully so I can love the other fully. So the challenge is that as women, we have to create an infrastructure to study ourselves. And that's our vision in the women's school, is that we create an infrastructure of learning and studying and designing the woman we want to become year after year. We have to give birth to a new woman every single day, every single season, every single year of our life. Otherwise, we're the same woman year after year. Otherwise, we're not growing and studying ourselves to then, I would say, continually rise into the seasons of our life. how you study yourself as a new mom is going to be different as how you study yourself as a seasoned mom or a mom of 2 or 3, or how you are as a single woman now dating, or perhaps at college, and how you study yourself in context of how you discover your career. So this constant growth and knowing thyself never ends. It's never an arrival, rather an evolution of a whole version of ourselves. And so that's the challenge, is that creating that infrastructure of growth requires you to have growth friends that you're growing and learning and studying with. It requires you to create also an infrastructure where you're constantly creating a routine and rhythm of life where you're studying yourself as part of your daily life, and you're also getting an accountability so that you're growing who you are. And last, that we are studying ourselves in a very integrated way. We're not just sort of studying our wounds and looking at our wounds. So we're studying our desires, and we're studying how we want to be loved in our intimacy. We're studying, what works for us in terms of taking care of our health. We're studying our nutrition, what makes us feel healthy, what makes us maybe feel a little bit more as though, we feel more, I would say, awake, right? What makes us brain foggy. All that is so integrated, because how we know ourselves in different parts of our life impacts how we are in every part of our life, right? If we're studying what food impacts our mood, what food impacts the way we show up to our friends or family, that impacts also the way we study at work. It impacts the way we see ourselves and our self-image. It impacts our friendship, because now our friendship, we're more present to them. We're more patient with them because we're not eating healthy. We're more impatient. We don't have the, I would say, capacity for greater patience if we're not creating an infrastructure of growth friends with a routine, but also that's integrated version of ourselves. And so I'm going to invite you to invest in your own growth as a woman for the rest of your life, so that you can fulfill your call to love those around you in a way that actually goes right back to you. Deeper connection and deeper love with the people around you, to love your neighbor, to love yourself, actually also is a great way for you to actually feel that level of fulfillment, because we are made for connection. We're not made for isolation. So the more you love yourself, the more you actually feel fulfilled, because your deeper connection fulfills you. Now, I'm going to put one more question here that I think is a very important question is, if you also are perhaps have heard love your enemy, which is such a radical concept in the Bible. Now, I used to always think, okay, that's the enemy, that's sort of the people that perhaps were at war. But also there's parts of who we are that we've also allowed to become an enemy. Maybe there's wounds, and yet we have to love the enemy, which means we have to love ourselves in context of the things that we don't like about ourselves, in context of our own wounds and our frustration. This becomes very, I would say, it becomes an act of courage to then bring awareness to who we are and who we're not, and love ourselves in spite the things that we don't like ourselves. And I think that's where we go full circle in knowing and honoring our unconditional worth, because nothing changes our value, and we are valuable apart from our failures, our mistakes, our success. It doesn't change, right? And that's something that I can't tell you. You have to actually shift that narrative and rewire your brain. That's what we do in the women's school. We rewire our brain so that we're not just not, I can tell you till you blue, your worth is unconditional, nothing changes your value, and that to love yourself, you have to honor your value. But this wiring is literally a physical wiring in your brain that's happened for decades and decades. If you have been told that your value is based on your body, it's going to take you a while to actually shift that. It's like learning a whole new language. If you don't speak French, it's like you're learning French and you're rewiring those neurons in your brain. Literally, your brain wiring is happening. So it's going to take an investment of your time and your energy and your commitment. And it's an intentional journey of self-awareness and self-love. And, nobody can do it for you. But ultimately, it is a gift to yourself when you learn to love yourself by knowing yourself first. So if you're interested in continuing to grow and learn yourself, you can access our free strategy call in the Women's School and learn more about how we teach you to become a whole version of you and give you the mindset and skill set training so that you can actually learn to love yourself before you love those around you. If you like this training, subscribe for more practical life training in the Women's School, share this video, and I look forward to seeing you more in our trainings.